Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Dave and we're here in my shop where I build E-War guitars. I love building guitars. I really love building guitars. I enjoy the heck out of it. In fact, I enjoy it so much, I've actually expanded my shop. Check it out, I got a new wall there, I got a new wall over there. I'm gonna now have a window in my shop. I never had that before. And I'm doing all this because I want to build the best guitars I could possibly build. And to do that, I needed a little more space. And I also needed a new workbench. I needed a good workbench, not the stuff I was using before, but I needed a really good one. So over the last few weeks, I've been building this here split top Roubo workbench. And it's really awesome. This is going to be episode number 6 in the series. And in this episode, I'm building and installing this leg vise right here. And check this out. That thing works so nice, it's not even funny. I love it. This is Benchcrafted hardware, which is amazing stuff. And this is a really rock solid, excellent leg vise. Look at that, one flip of the lever and it just moved in about 12 inches and hit rock solid. Cinch it up and it's locked in. Anyway, if you think you might dig this sort of thing, how about you check out the video? And if you like it, how about you give me a like and subscribe? Appreciate it, and we'll catch you all later. So this video starts out by going back in time a little bit to before I built the base to this bench. What I have to do is I have to do some milling operations on both the chop, which is I'm working on there, and the front left leg that's in the foreground of this little video clip right here. These things had to be done before I assembled the base, but it was really part of the leg vise in assembly and the work you have to do to build the leg vise, to put in the leg vise. So I videoed this back before I built the base, and I'm showing it right here. So this can be one complete video all about the leg vise. Okay, so this piece is going to be my chop. This is not cut to its final shape yet or anything, but it makes up the leg vise. This is going to travel in and out up against the leg of the bench. And before I begin to assemble the legs together on the end trestles and the stretchers across the front, I want to get some more milling done on this. And what I have to do is this is going to get a scissors. It's a crisscross bar. It's a scissor thing that keeps this chop running smoothly and keeping parallel with the ground and the face of the bench. So I have to lay out, according to Benchcrafted's design here, I have to lay out for mortise. I got a mortise 1 3/4 wide by 1 7/16 deep here, and also drill my 1 1/4 screw hole in both the leg and on the chop. So I am going to follow their instructions and lay this out. Yeah, so this Benchcrafted hardware is absolutely amazing stuff. And when you're mixing that iron with wood and it has to function perfectly, you have to be so accurate. And that's what I was trying to do. I was doing my best to get every mark exactly right. I checked and rechecked and rechecked. I made sure to mark all my holes that I was going to drill and then check them all again. It's really good hardware, and it has to be done just right. And the way it works now is just unbelievable. It's really amazing stuff. So now I'm also drilling in the side pins that there's a 5/16, it's basically a pivot pin that I have to drill through, and those have to be exactly dead on too. And so there again, I was trying to be really accurate. And the throw on my drill press is only 4 inches. So I had to drill these guys from 2 different sides. So with that big long drill bit, I can't remember if that was 5/16 or 3/8. Might have been 3/8. Anyway, so I had to drill halfway through from one side and then come back and drill halfway through from the other side too. And when I hit it just right, it hit just perfect. So the pin slid in there really nice, and the bars that hook to those pins work really well too. Now here I'm drilling that 1 1/4 hole for the screw to go through, And that bit doesn't make it all the way through either. So what I did was I drilled it halfway through, and then I had a really long 1/8 inch drill bit that I used the center that Forstner bit made, and I drilled it through the rest of the way and then just flipped it over for the last little bit of the hole. It worked out well. Of course, I'm doing the same operation now on the chop piece. Both of these pieces, the leg and the chop, had identical things done to it. The mortises, the pinholes, and the screw hole too, because they made up to each other when it's all said and done. Now I'm just going through and I'm drilling out to remove most of the material for the routing operation. And this is some really sexy slow-mo drill press action right here. So now I made up a quick little template, and the hole in that template is the exact size of the hole I need for that mortise. So it's like 1 3/4 inches wide and I think 19.5 inches long. And I used the same exact template for both this chop here and the front left leg too. So, and it worked out really well. Now that's just a 1 inch long router bit I have there. That was a 1/2 inch router bit with a top bearing, and I just followed the template to cut the hole. But it would only go so deep, since I had to go 1 7/16 inches deep. I had to take off the template and then proceed to route by hand the rest of it. But it came out real nice. It turned out being exactly 1 3/4 inches wide, 19.5 long, and 1 7/16 inches deep, which is exactly what that hardware needed. Of course, I have to clean up the corners a little bit. There's these steel rub plates that go in there that this crisscross bar has to ride on. Keeps it from wearing into the wood. And so I'm cleaning up that bottom a little bit for those 1/8 thick steel plates that go in there. Oh, and there's also where the screw goes through in the face of the leg, it gets an additional bushing. They give you an acetal it's basically a plastic bushing that's a guide for the screw to go through there. And that's it. It just dropped in real nice. Now to screw in the little plates down here. These are the wear plates that the crisscross bars ride on. So now I'm trying out these crisscross bars for the first time. Sticking a little pin in the middle of it, getting the clip on there. See, so they lay right in the hole, and one of the crisscross attaches to the leg that you see me putting the pin in there, and the other one attaches to the chop. And it's old technology, but it's really good technology. And that joker, I mean, that thing rides in and out like beautifully. In fact, I have that chop set about 1/16 of an inch off the floor, and the entire travel distance of that chop, it stays that same distance off the floor. I probably need to cut it a little bit shorter because that's awfully close. But anyway, so now after getting that done, I was able to go ahead and assemble this last leg into the trellis and begin putting together my bench, the base, which I did the last video on. So if you'd like to see that, I'll stick a link up there right now. Okay, so this is the back side of my chop right here. This board is, I think, like 2.5 inches thick. Right now it's overall 8 3/4 wide, and it's the height of the whole side of the bench. Actually a little bit longer than that, which I'll cut down later. So I have to cut a shape. I don't have to, it could stay a big slab, but I want to cut a bit of a shape into it because that's usually what people do. And I don't know if you can see in that camera, but I've got a couple lines here that sort of taper from up here. So this is square. I've got this laid out at 8 inches wide at the top, and then it tapers from here, and I've got it tapering down to about here. They call that a tombstone looking thing, you know. And I think that's cool. One thing I've got to deal with on this, now this big mortise here in that hole, that's part of the leg vise. But this little guy right here, that was something left from this board from before that I had chiseled out that spot from a different project, and it wound up being here. So I want to hide it or cut it out, one of the two things. Of course, this is the inside of the chop, so you won't see it from the outside because this is the outside of the thing. Unless I cut into it, so I don't want to cut into the thing. So I either got to come on the inside of it or the outside of it. And that's what this taper is on the outside, but that seems kind of wide to me. The bottom of this, the leg that this goes up against is 5 inches wide. And this is 6.5 the way that's laid out. And that just seems to me it's going to be a bit, I want it chunky, but that's going to be a bit too chunky. So I am trying to figure out how to do this, and I don't know that I want to taper it down this far, because I think the bottom is going to be too thin. So I'm trying a couple different things. I'm thinking about one way to do it. I might be able to come up here and somehow do a really gentle, a little gentle curve inwards, right? One thing I should do is let me check first. So I definitely don't want to go, I don't want to go under the width of the leg. So I'm speeding this up here. I spent a while laying this out and relaying it out and relaying it out, and you can see I'm getting a lot of marks on there, but I'm real pleased with the way it came out, though. I'm glad I spent this time coming up with the shape that kind of worked with everything, including that little notch at the bottom. It's getting hard to figure out which line I'm supposed to go to. I got to keep remarking them. I gave just that little curve at the bottom, and I thought that looked pretty cool. Now I just got to darken up my marks a little bit so I know which ones to cut on the bandsaw. But I'm pretty pleased with the shape. So as it all turns out, the biggest part of the work on this leg vise was building that chop. I mean, the installing the hardware was pretty straightforward, and it went well for me. But building the chop was the bigger part of the work, but it was cool too. I really like the way this thing turned out. And it's a cool looking piece of wood. But boy, that thing had a lot of pitch in it though. Man, I was plugging up sandpaper like it was going out of style. I got a resaw blade on there, so I couldn't cut those tight curves at the bottom, so I just had to sort of chop into it and then whack it off, and then I took it over to my spindle sander and cleaned it up. As a matter of fact, I'm showing that right here. But it really turned out cool. I still got a little more cutting to do on it. I cut a bevel at the top, and then I cut a very slight taper on the top and the bottom, but I didn't guess I videoed any of that. It's probably one of those nights where I jumped up late at night and said, hey, I'm going to go do that, and I went and did it. I'm just doing some finish sanding on it, which, like I said, because of all the pitch in the wood, it took a while because I kept plugging up all my sandpaper. I didn't get crazy with sanding the thing. I mean, I got it all smooth and the corners rounded nice and everything, but hey, after all, this is a bench, and it's going to get used and beat up, and you know. And I'm also throwing a couple of coats of True Oil on it. I have on the rest of the bench. I'll probably put a couple more on it after this thing is all installed and done, but I wanted to make sure to get all the inner areas that I won't be able to get to very easily later on. So I think I put 2 coats of True Oil on it now, which is great stuff. It penetrates and it leaves a slight finish. And if you keep going with it, it'll really build up a shine to it too. But if you stop after 3 or 4 coats or so, it won't shine. It'll just put a nice protective layer on it. So now it's time to fit all this stuff together and see how it works. These are the 5/16 inch hinge pins I'm driving into the 2 crisscross pieces. One, of course, in the leg and the other into the chop. And then there's a center pin that goes in to hook the 2 scissor pieces together, the crisscross bars they call them. And that thing works really nice. That thing stays completely level in and out all the way, and it's really cool. So now I have to assemble the flange, the mounting flange, and the hand wheel onto the leg vise screw. And they provide a pin that is a specially shaped pin. It's slightly wedged, and when you get the holes lined up, you could drive it in, and it'll seat flush on the edge of the wheel, and it works really well. So these have a natural taper to them. The top hits before the bottom, and I was just checking that distance right there. It's supposed to be between 1/8 and 3/8 of an inch, and I was right in the middle. I was right at about 1/4 inch gap at the bottom. That way when it tightens up, it sucks all the way in tight on top, and you don't have to worry about any of the rest of the chop hitting the leg. Now I'm getting ready to insert the hand wheel and screw into the face of the chop. And you just really carefully lay it out. You don't want the screw part to touch any wood anywhere on the thing. So I'm being super careful in laying it out. The interesting thing is here that you actually, you don't use like lag type screws. You don't use wood screws in this, but you actually drill it and tap it. And which I did, and it worked really well. Threaded in real nice. I'm just trying to find my center right here. That thing has to be perfectly centered up and down and sideways too. So they're very adamant in the Benchcrafted plans that you don't want that screw hitting any wood whatsoever. Making a couple little marks there at my center punch. Got a flag on the drill bit so I don't drill too deep. Just basically get it drilled out, and then very slowly, I've got this sped up, but I was very slow and meticulous about running that tap in there to make sure it didn't strip out any threads. You go too fast with one of those taps in a drill and it'll turn into a drill bit quick. Drop it in and thread in those bolts. So now it's time to put on that back nut that goes on the back of the leg. And this is all beautifully machined parts, it really is. So here again, you want to make sure that that leg, or the screw goes through the leg at a perfect horizontal line. So I checked the height of it off of the base, and it's right on the money. So now I just have to basically mark out the 3 holes into that back nut and run the wood screws in. Now for whatever reason, these are regular wood screws. The front of the vise had the threaded machine screws, and these are standard wood screws. Now check it out for the first time. Now here's the acetal bushing. It's about a 1/2 inch thick. It's a very hard plastic. I guess that material is used in bearing manufacturing. But it's different. It has an oval-shaped hole in the middle of it. It's taller than it is wide. And the width is exactly the size of the 1-inch screw. And what that does, it just stops any lateral movement in the screw to keep it operating and functioning really nicely. That also has to be lined up perfectly with with both the chop and that screw, the nut that's on the back of the leg too. Just feels really good when you give that wheel a spin and that thing just rides all the way in. Just worked beautifully. And boy, that's got some clamping pressure on it too, I promise. Last little thing is to screw on the little fancy knobs I got on there. Just works real great.